They've said that we are here to make the game that we have originally intended to make. And they even admitted that a lot of the changes that they made in the past was because of community pressure, because of certain content creators and streamers putting this kind of, I guess you could say, agenda about how they feel the game should be played due to how it benefits their play style.
Escape from Tarkov has become a video game phenomenon.
Just so you guys know, I helped Lucas for a lot of this footage on this video. Like a lot of these clips and stuff with no camera is actually me. I'm the one who helped record a lot of this stuff for him, which is pretty cool. So I remember me and him spent like 4 hours playing together just getting footage.
So the weapon customization in Tarkov is one of the major selling points. Once you get to level 15, you can be level 10, maybe 20.
That's a good clip.
15, and part of the issue with Tarkov originally was the bigger, heavier guns meant you had less recoil, you could shoot them more accurately, and there was never really a reason to use shorter guns that are actually much more maneuverable and useful in CQB. They're starting to address some of this.
Just so you guys know, BHD watched this video and took a lot of this feedback to heart. Nikita told me him and his team watched it a few times. And a lot of the changes that we're going to likely see in the next update is because of this video right here. So a lot of the changes in meta, weapon handling, and stuff like that, a lot of that is changing because of this video right here.
The thing that controls recoil in automatic fire for a weapon is not necessarily the barrel length. You know, whether you're using a 10.3 or something like a 14.5, a 16, or a 20. It's going to come down to the rate of fire of the weapon, which is controlled by the gas that is cycling the weapon, the buffer, the springs, the piston settings, and to some extent.
And like, look at that. Lucas, like, he may not be the biggest guy, right? But look at him shooting that comped M4 right here. Like, he's even getting kind of kicked back a bit on a 5.56 AR. And this guy shoots more than like most people in the fucking military. Look how much he's getting kicked back from full auto right there.
It's going to come down to the rate of fire of the weapon, which is controlled.
Look at that. Like, it literally
gas
like pushed him backwards. And like, again, this guy shoots a lot. He shoots a lot. Like, this guy, in comparison to like real life PMCs, he's probably more skilled and proficient at actually shooting a gun than most actual trained operators. I'm not trying to say like he's the same, but in terms of his amount of training that he has, and he shoots guns multiple times a week as his job, like, it just kind of goes to show like how intense the recoil actually is and how unrealistically compensated it is in EFT and how easy the guns are to use in Tarkov. And it's gotten better. It's definitely gotten a lot better. But even still, like, that should be a really good example as to how intense that shit actually is. It's so the reason why the HK 416 is a lot harder to control is just due to how the gas system works. It's a piston driven system. So you have your direct impingement in an AR-15, and then you have your HK system. And so you can see the difference, like really controllable, really light recoil. That's because there's not a lot of movement really happening in the gun. The direct impingement system is just, you know, it's going right here.
It has a 10.3 barrel and only a flashlight.
Whereas
it doesn't even have a muzzle brake on it.
Then when you look at the HK here,
416 with a suppressor attached.
look at the sporadicness in his shooting right there. You can see a huge difference in the way that he shoots the HK because it actually has a direct piston. AKs would be pretty similar, assuming it's not a 5x5. 5x5 AKs are kind of that exception. They're actually really easy to control. But you can see the aggression. And so, like in EFT, one thing that is really weird is that HKs typically will have less recoil than an M4, which is unrealistic. That's just not how those weapon systems work.
And in Tarkov, there doesn't seem to be, at least, very much penalty to running your full auto from the hip. There's just not a lot of change right there. So I think that could be increased quite a bit for a little bit more realism.
Agreed.
Also penalizing some of the hip fire that's...
I mean, honestly, let's be honest. Like, once you hit max level strength, most of these people that you see playing Tarkov at that higher level, once they, you know, basically have max strength, inertia doesn't exist. Most of those guys don't really ADS that much. They're hip firing almost most of their shots with their meta guns. And they can hit accurate, like, from the shoulder, not like cheeking. So, like, you know, you're right here. Again, he's talking about this point of contact right here. This is that extra point of contact. There's actually, now that you have a point of contact here, you're getting more control versus being right here. Most people in Tarkov just shoot like this. They're just shooting over the top of their gun, and it makes it incredibly easy. There was like a little clip that was shown off not too long ago of a dead zone being introduced in one of the dev blogs. And what a dead zone is now the guns don't seem like they're always going to be pointing at the center of your screen anymore. Your gun is actually going to move around the screen, and your screen is actually going to stay in the same location now, which I think is a good thing, because that is actually quite immersive and realistic in terms of how weapons actually handle. Because when I'm aiming my rifle and I turn like this, like you don't have like this shift, like my whole body isn't moving like that. My torso is moving like this. So now I'm looking over the top of my gun. So like I'm not like always looking like this. My neck isn't stiff like this. I'm looking around and I'm shifting my weapon over and then adjusting myself as an ADS and literally looking into a direction. And I think that is one of the changes that's going to be coming up in this next update. And like I said, a lot of the things that he's talking about in this video, I know for a fact BSG has watched and they are taking into account and consideration for this next update. And I think this video specifically is actually going to do a lot of good for the game because of the expertise that Lucas has with the amount of training that he has and his comparisons that he's brought to EFT. I honestly think that this video is going to help EFT a lot in order to achieve that better vision. Because like this is feedback that nobody in the community can give. Like not even me. Like, and I shoot a lot. I know I'm like one of the only shooters in the EFT community who goes to the range pretty often. Like, Lucas has like a whole nother level of perspective that he can bring to the game, and he has with this video. It's super cool.
So what I'm trying to do, and this is why Hipfire in video games is so accurate, is in a video game your gun is always centered and perfectly flat to the horizon, provided your character, you know, looks at the horizon. But if I'm working from high ready or even a low ready as I come around a corner and snap to what I think is the horizon, it's not always going to be there.
And see, that's what I was talking about. So when you have your rifle, right, and you're, like you said, you're at a high ready or you're at a low ready, you know, you're high cheeking or something like that, and like you snap to your target and what you think is going to be the horizon. In Tarkov, you're always like this. Your guy's stiff. Your guy's always like, his eyes is in alignment with everything horizontally, vertically with the rifle. And your character is always looking at the same position and holding the same spot on the rifle. Where in reality, that's just not how rifles are maneuvered. Your character is, you know, if I were to like aim right there, like the position of my muzzle is probably going to be different compared to what I'm seeing over the top of my gun. And so in older versions of Tarkov, before they expanded Shoreline, there was what was called a dead zone. And what a dead zone is basically this. So in Tarkov, it's like this. Your character is always like really stiff, right? But now let's make it look natural. Like this. My gun moves a little bit before my head. You know, my gun is literally moving in front of me before my camera, basically. And so a lot of games that do this are BattleBit, actually. We've been playing BattleBit. Another game that does this is Red Orchestra, Rising Storm 2, if you guys have played that, or Red Orchestra 2. You can see the gun basically move like this, and you can't always snap onto somebody. Insurgency also does that as well. Insurgency also has a dead zone where the gun just kind of goes like this and it moves around. In early versions of Tarkov, you want to know what ergonomics did? It made that dead zone smaller. So if you had a 100 ergo gun, you maxed out your ergo on your gun, your dead zone was tiny. It was very small. So you could kind of use the horizon vertically and horizontally, or horizontally and vertically, to hip fire shots more accurate. But if you had a gun that was like sub 50 or 40 ergonomics, you did not have that easy of a time hip firing people, because like you try and snap to somebody and your gun would be like this, or it'd be like this, or you'd be a little low. And that's when actually having a laser didn't even give you a hip fire buff. What it actually did is it just helped you find your target. So like when you would snap, you'd be like, oh, there's my laser. But your laser wouldn't be always pointed at the very center of your screen horizontally and vertically, horizontally and vertically. So the lasers back then in the earlier versions of Tarkov were actually just really used to just really see where your muzzle is and where your shots are, because you could quickly adjust your laser over to, you know, basically hit what you want, because that's what lasers really do in real life. I think they're adding this shit back. I really think they are. And like I said, ergo was way stronger back in the day because that dead zone was smaller the higher your ergo was. If you had like a 10 ergo gun or like a sniper, dude, your gun was like this, bro. You're like fanning around, like getting hipfire kills were fucking hard. It was not easy back then. Like you really had to like practice and use the same gun a lot. And like, even then, like you'd still whip shots from the hip just because your gun isn't always perfectly on that horizontal and vertical horizon. And so, like I said, a lot of the stuff that Lucas talks about in this video, I know for a fact BSG has watched this video multiple times, and these are things that they are taking into account for the next update. So a lot of people should really be ready for that. And again, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people in the community who are going to be like, change it back. I got nerfed because I can't do the thing that I did anymore. It's going to be just like inertia, because a lot of the people who have this audio, like this neural connection because of the amount of reps that they've had through the game, they're going to have to adjust again, and they're not going to be as good as they were because a lot of that natural repetition that they've done over the thousands of hours that they've played the game is going to kind of go out the window now, and they just have to adjust. And so I know there's definitely going to be some pushback on some of this stuff once BSG implements it next update. But at the end of the day, just if you guys are those kinds of people, just know that muscle memory is going to have to change, and you're going to have to create new muscle memory. And there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, it's going to be better for the whole game overall. It's not just about one individual player or you. Just like inertia, man. Like a lot of people initially like, oh, fuck inertia, this sucks. But, they got used to it. And it frankly made the game a lot more enjoyable, especially early wipe. But we still have that problem where when people hit max level strength, inertia doesn't exist, and they can still basically move like pre-12-12, which is, in my opinion, bullshit. I've been really saying that strength needs a huge fucking nerf for a long time, just because kinetically speaking on how PMCs move, once you're at that point, you can have 60, 70 kilos of gear and like you're still moving like you have no inertia. And that's not that cool, in my opinion, because that's just not what Tarkov is supposed to be, in my opinion. So again, he's talking about really good stuff here. And like, I'm really excited to see how BSG has taken this video's feedback and implemented it into their game. And you can see that in the dev blog. You notice when he's ADSing, I'll have to actually find this video. So look at this. This is what we're talking about. So look at this right here. So notice when he moves, now notice the gun isn't on the horizon anymore. So here's the center of the screen. Notice how he ADSs. He's aiming right here, and then he transitions over. This is from the recent dev blog of BSG. So he's aiming here, he's shooting there, and then he transitions over. Now notice, this is the center. Look at the center of the screen right here. You can see it. He's no longer at the center of the screen. And he's going to do a comparison here in a second where he shows what it's like right now to what it's going to be. And so look at the difference. See how consistent it is on that vertical horizon constantly, vertically and horizontally. It's always flat like that. And notice the difference there. So this is actually going to make transitioning and shooting a lot different in the game. And again, I think this is very good because this is going to slow down firefights. It's going to reduce the TTK because people aren't going to be as accurate with their firearms anymore. And that is a very huge, subtle change. And I think this is going to apply while aiming and while also, while in the non-aimed position. And I do hope that this means that high ergo guns will kind of be like that. And again, this is Red Orchestra 2 right here. Look, this is an aiming dead zone. And this is what I'm talking about. Essentially, your muzzle isn't at the fucking horizon perfectly anymore. So snapping onto people and using that center of your screen is not going to be as easy to lock on and hit targets anymore. And again, I think this is going to be a great change because it will significantly reduce the TTK in the game, only because people are going to be less accurate. I've always said one of the main contributors to TTK and EFT has never been armor or ammo. It's how easy the guns are to shoot. Assuming you have like a gun with like, near meta stats or like a vector. It's because a lot of the guns are very easy to shoot. Aiming is not that hard in this game. There's not a lot of sway. There's not a lot of natural movement when ADSing. Your dude is super, super steady all the time. This stuff's going to be really good. And I'm super, 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 super excited for this stuff. I think it's going to be fucking awesome. And I really can't wait to test it out and just kind of see how it goes. Yeah, example, you're right. They have made certain points that they want to avoid certain levels of realism. But at the end of the day, it's like BSG is going to make the game that they feel is the most realistic as playable. And that's entirely on BSG. It's not what we want. It's not what we think is realistic as playable. It's whatever BSG wants. And again, EFT is a gun simulation game. That is literally a part of the game's description with MMO and RPG elements. And so doesn't matter if this stuff changes, because at the end of the day, this is what BSG wants to do. If they feel that adding these changes to dead zone and changing the horizon vertically and horizontally and the accuracy of your ability to shoot from the hip is with what they want, that's what they're going to do, because that's what they feel is best for their game, because nobody knows what's best for Tarkov besides BSG. However, when it comes to dudes like Lucas right here, being able to give a specific type of feedback that literally nobody in the community can give due to his experience and his ability to basically compare and contrast things from EFT to the real world, which is what BSG wants to do, this is what they're going to probably listen to, is because they have a lot of respect for Lucas, but two is like the fact that he took the time to make this video and draw a lot of these contrasts and problems that is EFT actually a realistic game. This is stuff that BSG will take very seriously into consideration, because at the end of the day, like the stuff that he's talking about in this video is kind of a problem within the game, in my opinion. Like a lot of the way that the game is still played, like EFT still is kind of caught with extra steps after a certain point. It's getting better and it has been improving constantly. But if you look at like pre-1212, pre-inertia, like, dude, EFT is probably one of the easiest FPS games out there in terms of your ability to control and move your character and shoot guns. It may seem like it's a very slow tactical shooter, but once you get to a certain point, like you watch Will play, Landmark play, Pestily play, any of these guys who've been putting thousands of hours in, the game doesn't look anything like the trailers that BSG puts out, where people are slowly clearing, suppressing fire, using grenades, clearing corners. Nobody plays the game like that. And so these things that Lucas is talking about will help bring EFT more into that light that I know where BSG wants to take the game, because that's their passion. They're trying to make a gun simulation game. But again, there's lines. Realistic is playable. And whatever BSG feels is realistic is playable is entirely on them. It's not us as a community to decide. That's BSG. And who they decide to listen to is entirely on them. That's BSG's choice, who they feel like they should listen to. And also keep this in mind too. Nikita told me this 2 wipes ago. He says the plan is to not rip a Band-Aid off and introduce all these intense changes where people have to adjust drastically. They said that every single update, every single wipe, the game is slowly but surely going to become more in line with the vision that they've started with at the very beginning of the game. They've talked about this on multiple podcasts in the past. They've said that we are here to make the game that we originally intended to make. And they even admitted that a lot of the changes that they made in the past was because of community pressure, because of certain content creators and streamers putting this kind of, I guess you could say, agenda about how they feel the game should be played due to how it benefits their play style. And they said that they made some mistakes, and they plan on slowly but surely taking the game to where that they want it to be. And they want to make it a very true tactical FPS game. And I can't wait. And I respect the fact that they're doing it slowly. They're going to do it each and every wipe and slowly but surely, let people adjust over time, instead of it just being like one big drastic foul swoop where everybody's going to really have these big adjustments. And so I respect that. They're trying to take into account a lot of the people who play their game often and like a majority of the community. And they want to make sure that they ease everybody into a lot of these big changes instead of it just being like that. And I think that's a really good call. And I respect the fact that they want to do that. I think that's a very good call. Well, no, the thing is Arena isn't going to be arcadey either. It's going to be a PvP style mode, but the gameplay is still going to be the same. The only difference is you have this adventure style RPG progression mode with the current raid system that we have, but the Arena is just going to be a place for dedicated PvP. So if you want to do PvP, that's fine, but it doesn't mean the movement and the gunplay and stuff is going to be different. It's still going to be the same gameplay. It's just going to be PvP focused. I can't wait till Arena comes in, mainly just because it's going to, I think, solve that divide within the community of the players who want to do nothing but PvP and the players that are just trying to progress and get through the game. And they don't have to, there doesn't have to be that divide anymore, because if you're the type of person that just wants to sweat PvP and do nothing but that, you can go do that. So go to the fucking Arena and fight out to your heart's content, and let the players who just want to play and have this adventure and progress on their PMC do what they want to do. I think it's going to solve a lot of problems and really fix that divide within the community. But don't think that the gameplay, in terms of the way that you shoot and the way that you move, is going to be different. It's still the same game. It's still the same FPS at the end of the day. It's just a different mode. Just like open world will eventually be a different mode. It's still all Tarkov at the end of the day.
Unless I use a special stock, a drop stock, which I'll show here in a second, I'm not going to be able to ADS this rifle with my visor engaged. Unless I run the laser, or if I have a gun with a folding stock, Now I can make that work.
I really hope this change comes. I really do, because right, the only disadvantage to running a visor in EFT is just like lack of vision, because obviously every visor is dirty as fuck. But I think what they could do, if they do add this feature in, is clear up the visors a little bit, make them less fucking smeary, make it to where we can actually kind of see through them better, but then implement this. So there's a reason to fold your stock. There's a reason to have specific setups with optics, with like high mounts. You know, for example, like a P90 with an EOTech, you could ADS with the visor down with a P90 and an EOTech. It would give you the reason to fold your stock on many different rifles and submachine guns. It would actually give people a reason to do that. And if people wanted to, they would have to expose their face in order to accurately land shots on people if they wanted to aim their gun, which I think would be really cool. It would just kind of increase that dynamic and add more of a risk reward factor to using visors. And like I said, I think a good trade-off would be just make the visors less dirty, you know, like reduce the transparency of those fucking scratches by a lot, and then implement this. And I think that would be a really fair trade-off. BSG has already showed off a year or two ago of leaks of these stocks, specifically for this MCX. Again, I think they've developed quite a bit of content in terms of models and stuff to where this is something that I think they will still do. And again, that's one of those changes that BSG slowly but surely will create the game that they want to make, that hyper realistic simulation game. Obviously there's levels to the shit, but they showed off pictures and models of this stuff like a few years ago. And I really do hope we see this, because it would, in my opinion, it would kind of be a cool thing. It would add a lot of variation and risk reward to using items like visors.
1 light, 2 light, 3 light, off. It's not going to be instantaneous.
Do you see his fucking beanie, dude? He's got the fucking scab beanie on, dude. Look.
1 light,
He's got the
2
skier
light,
hat, bro.
3 light.
But yeah, man, like I said, dude, like a lot of this stuff in this video is coming. And a big one is really that like aiming dead zone. And you know, it's just really cool to see the fact that, you know, BSG has done so much for the firearms community in the United States and has helped get people interested in guns in the United States than most like official firearms organizations. It's really crazy. Did I get T.REX into EFT? Not exactly. I mean, he kind of heard of the game by himself, but we've definitely like played together quite a bit. And you know, we've like kind of built a relationship together, kind of like around Tarkov. But I wasn't the one who's like, hey, play Tarkov, you know what I mean? But he kind of did that himself. But you know, we have definitely played it together in the past, and you know, it's just it's really cool, man. I'm really excited to see what BSG does and how they use that entire video to, you know, essentially make EFT a better game. You know, of course, being as like realistic as playable and all that bullshit. But you know, at the end of the day, I think BSG is really doing their best to create that epic firearm simulation game that, you know, all of us all love. And you know, I'm really excited to see the future of the game. And you know, I still am a firm believer that EFT is constantly improving, and it's always getting better. It hasn't really degraded at all. You know, it's one of the only early access games that has continually gotten better over the years. And with every single new update that has come out, the game has improved drastically, and you know, it's pretty fucking cool, man.